Well, I know. Honestly, like I had to remember how to go live, and I was looking for a thumbnail, and I just got tired of looking. And I saw your text, Will, and so I thought I'll just do the screenshot thing. And QAL, how? No, it's not late here. Probably late where you're at. All right, let me. It's been a while. Let me jump on my channel. I wanted to talk about the. I want to talk. You know, I saw Canel's live feed earlier today, and it was a little inspirational. And tonight I was sitting on the couch looking at. That's a little goofy. Sitting on the couch reading a couple of Facebook comments, and I can't think of the name of the Facebook page. It was a trucking page. And it's sort of that time of year, right? It's January, and freight has been really good the last few. I mean, really good is a relative term. If you look year over year, it's been pretty good. But we know what's coming, right? What's coming is the dreaded F word. Everybody with me? February. Right? So February is coming, and we know it. And a lot of people in the last several months have been, concerned pretty significantly about rates and what have you, and what's coming. I'm not here to tell you what's coming because I don't know. I'm not that smart. I think it's like meteorology. I think a lot of people just guess, candidly. What I can tell you is I did see. By the way, so this past week and over the next couple of weeks, I'm doing some dispatching as well. And so I think I apologize to all my drivers in advance for that. But so this past week we've been running. Everybody was running hard and all this good stuff. But like a lot of you guys, right? We have to compete in this industry, and it is a commoditized industry. We all know that, right? Brokers tend to care about a couple things. When they're looking for a load, they care about somebody that's probably got enough hours. Although in all the loads that I booked this past week, I don't know how many that was. Let's say it was 20 loads, give or take. Not one single broker ever asked how many hours my drivers had, right? Could they get this there on time? They never asked that, which I thought was a little strange. But on this Facebook page a little early ago, they sort of alluded to the same kind of thing, like, hey, February's coming, like, what are you gonna do to compete? And quite a few comments, and I just sort of thumbed through really quickly, and 70% of the 40 or so comments that I read all had this phrase: improve, or I'm going to provide great customer service. Okay. So let's assume that there were 100 comments, and let's assume that 70% of them are going to be providing great customer service. If everybody's providing great customer service, are you really providing, in fact, not just the same service as the vast majority of everybody else? Therefore, you are now still just a commodity. So the question really is, what's great customer service in this industry? I mean, I've done some videos on this kind of stuff before. We've talked about it before. I will say this. One of the things that I know that brokers really appreciate, and I was surprised because I received several text messages and a handful of emails from brokers this week. First time I've had one or two here and there, but I had more positive feedback regarding our drivers, big brokers, than I probably have since we started. So that could mean one of two things. All the drivers that we have now are far better than the ones we've had in the past. One can make that argument, right? The second is maybe the customer service is actually deteriorating, so that the things that our drivers are doing, and I do believe that and I complimented them tonight, the things that they're doing, the vast majority of people aren't. One of the things that these guys our guys were complimented on was how well they communicate. I can tell you, I get text messages all hours of the night. Our drivers are doing this one simple thing that the brokers are appreciating significantly. In many cases, they are texting the brokers, as well as me. It's a group text message. And they're doing really simple things like, hey, I'm shutting down here. It's this time, and I'm expecting an on-time arrival, right? No news is good news. But they're sharing that with the broker. Brokers are like, thanks, right? They just appreciate that. but the brokers are taking the time to respond back and make comments how well they appreciate those types of things. So that would imply to me that they're not. That's a customer service that they greatly appreciate. They're not having to babysit drivers. Our guys are communicating well. It implies that not a lot of people are communicating all that well. That's just one small example. What are the other examples that people are going to be providing great customer service in a commoditized industry like trucking? It's absolutely doable. I mean, if you look at I would hold my cell phone up, but I'm filling on it. Look at the cell phone market, right? Absolutely a commoditized industry. Granted, it's high-tech stuff and it does a lot of great, cool things, but you look at Apple, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before that in Q1. They had record-breaking sales in a commoditized industry. So they were clearly doing some things very different than their competitors, right? I made a few notes for me as I've had some conversations with brokers over the years and over this past week about things that they appreciate. And if I were to sum it up, and I guess I'm really curious on what you guys see and what you guys do that are different, right? Or how you feel that you provide great customer service. One is offering your knowledge, right? I had a couple examples this past week where, just a few comments that I would make to brokers about a particular run or a particular load or load timing, things of that nature. Some of the conversation I had with brokers this week, I saw this a lot. And I said, I realize that a lot of people from, kind of our side of the fence are pretty critical of brokers. And I said, I'll give you a couple of examples why. I said, I've seen several loads. We'll just use let's assume that you can drive 600 miles a day, right? And so this load is an 1,800 mile or 1,700 mile run. It's a 3-day run. But what we see is there's a 4 or a 5-day window on this. And the brokers, of course, want to pay as if it's a 3-day run. And from a mileage perspective, it's a 3-day run. When we look at the timing of the window, the picks and the deliveries, it's a 5-day run, right? And so if we're only getting the amount of revenue that is associated with a 3-day run or 3 days worth of miles, but they're gonna hold our truck for 5 days, then that's probably a particularly bad deal unless we're getting enough revenue to compensate for that. And I shared that with the brokers. I said, your shippers could help themselves save a lot of money, right? Because unless you guys are covering these loads at the rates that you're wanting to cover them at, if they would have more reasonable windows of pick and deliveries, they could reduce their costs a lot, because the average driver who understands their cost or cost per mile and things of that nature are going to realize that they're probably not going to want to take those runs, right? So offering your knowledge and things how maybe they can help or help their customer. Maybe it's a particular load or a particular route, or maybe that there's a storm coming. We had that situation this week. We had a couple trucks going up to the Northwest. I talked to a couple of the brokers. Hey, there's a storm coming. If we get into a situation where the shortest route, which we all typically tend to take, is going to be coming right in the middle of that storm, I'm not going to have our guys running the Northwest in chains just to make miles. So what are we going to do? We have two choices. We can shut down if we're driving right into the heart of that storm, or if you want us to deliver this product maybe a few hours late versus sitting for a day or a day and a half at a truck stop covered in snow, we can go out of route, but that's going to cost more money. So if you guys are willing for us to do that, we're happy to do it. We're happy to avoid the snow, the storm, and go out of route, but that's going to come at an additional cost. Are you willing and prepared to pay for that? Or does your customer want to pay for that? And in some cases, the answer was, gee, I hadn't thought about that, right? In fact, are you sure there's a storm coming, kind of a thing. So just having those kind of conversations can set yourself up right from the beginning of, look, we're willing to do some other things. We're willing to go out of route to get this there, maybe on time still or that sort of thing. But are you guys willing to pay for it? So just offering your knowledge on the industry or the load or the route or whatever can make a big difference for those particular customers at a lot of the time. So offering your knowledge again, on the load or even loading, right? We've had this a couple times. We run Volvos and 780s. They're typically a heavier truck. We know oftentimes if it's a pretty heavy load, we're going to be overweight on the steers or that sort of stuff. So we can just go in and tell the guys at the dock, hey, if you'll put one pallet in the nose and then two and then one and then doubles all the way back, we'll be good. We won't be overweight. You guys won't have to, we won't have to come back. You guys won't have to rework the load. Again, just sharing your knowledge about your truck, this load, how to load it. You're not telling them how to do their job. You're just telling them about your truck and your setup that may be a little bit different than the other guys. Preventing them from having to come back and rework it is a good thing. Oh, by the way, it's going to save you a lot of time as well. So again, kind of offering that piece of knowledge, that's a good thing, guys, right? But it's a way that you can compete and differentiate yourself in that commoditized market. Improving customer service, again, that was one of the words, that was the phrase that so many people were using. And I want to applaud a lot of our drivers because they've done an excellent job this week. And I know it, again, because the brokers are sharing the feedback. But I think improving customer service skills is a really important piece of this puzzle. Again, our guys are communicating really well. They're speaking professionally. They're texting in a professional manner. They type out the word you, Y-O-U, versus just typing the letter U, right? They don't look like a 14-year-old kid texting or typing. So it's a lot of the little things that just send professionalism to that next level. I'm going to share with you guys an example. It's kind of a racist, I think, example, pretty much. This happened to me middle of December. I was dispatching a particular driver, and I had the truck. I had sent the truck up to Pennsylvania, and this was actually the few days before Christmas. I'd sent the driver up to Pennsylvania. And we got a good rate going in. The rate's coming out, as you would expect, not particularly strong. They were in that $1.60, $1.70 kind of all over the board, and deteriorating. The longer I waited, a lot of people were snagging those loads, and what was being left was not particularly great. So I changed my search. Right, I wanted to get this guy back to Kansas City for Christmas, and so I changed my search criteria. I didn't just search what was around, Pennsylvania, 100 miles or 200 miles. I actually did a reverse search. Instead of choosing where I was at, I chose where I wanted to go, Kansas City. And I did a search from Kansas City. Where was the freight coming into Kansas City at? Turns out there was a load, I forgot the name of the town. It was 100 miles or so north of Detroit. We were over in Pennsylvania. It was a 600 and something mile deadhead. Now, you guys know that have followed this channel for any amount of time that I'm not a particularly big fan of deadhead. Although there are times when you should consider that. In this case, we had a deadline. We had Christmas Eve that we wanted to get the driver back home for. The problem was I'm stuck in a bad area. So I saw a really good load, and I called the lady, and I talked to the broker, and I said, hey, you have a load, and I have a driver. And so we kind of talked about it, and she said, look, here's what the load is, and we need it, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, is your truck empty? I said, yes. In fact, they are empty. They're just waiting on some paperwork. Problem is they are 600 and some odd miles away in Pennsylvania. And that obviously sounds like it wouldn't work. But as we had some conversation, the load didn't pick up until I think it was the afternoon of the next day. And she wasn't having much luck finding trucks that she wanted. Here's where it got racist. She said, as I kind of gave her our sales pitch about our driver and what we were trying to accomplish, and we could take this load, she said this. Again, racist comment, but I'll just tell you what she said. She said, look, what is your driver's name? I said, his name is Robert in this case, right? His name's Robert. And she said, does he speak English? And that sort of took me back for just a second. But clearly she had been experiencing some things that were that it caused her a lot of frustration to make that comment. And I made the comment to her, and I could have just said yes, right there, right? I could have just said yes and left it at that, but I didn't. I chose to take this opportunity because I realized that this was a pain point from her. So I said, well, ma'am, actually, not only does he speak English, but he's a former Marine, and he has former independent business experience, not outside of our industry. To which she said, and I sort of just sold her on this driver for about 30 seconds. And she cut me off and she said, done. Now, oh, by the way, I had asked her to help pay for the deadhead, which she cut me off and said, I'll pay you the deadhead. In fact, I'll pay you whatever you want. Now, I didn't try to screw her. She already had a really good rate. She paid for the deadhead. And oh, by the way, this load picked on time. It delivered on time. The driver did their job. The broker communicated well, gave us a good rate. And we got the guy back home the day before Christmas Eve. I think it was the 23rd. Look, racist situation aside, right? What we did was we took a negative experience, and this is what we talk a lot about in business. You have the opportunity to take a negative experience and turn it into something positive. Thankfully, her negative experience wasn't as it related to us, right? It was related to other drivers that either weren't communicating well or professionally or what have you. But it was a good opportunity for us, and we seized that opportunity, right? So again, even really silly things like that, we have no idea what a lot of these brokers are experiencing, but it's up to us to sell that value. In this case, we have an individual that is a veteran that has business experience, that's going to communicate really well with her, that's going to be there on time, going to deliver on time, is going to take care of that load. And she was more than happy to pay for it, right? We saw some examples of that this week as well. So I think improving those customer service skills, how we communicate, when we communicate, is a big deal. I think kind of the third bullet point that I made a note of is problem solving. This industry, Loshan, I saw Loshan in here. I know a lot of people played poker, and there's a saying in poker, right? You could have the best hand pre-flop, you could have the best hand after the flop, you can have the best hand on the turn. And then when the last card comes, the river, you could go from first to last just like that. And a lot of times people refer to it by saying, well, that's just poker. We have our own saying in this industry. It's called that's just trucking, right? Bad things happen. Today we had a situation where a driver, hit a chain that was in the road and blew out a tire and caused damage to a second one. That's trucking, unfortunately, right? There's times when we do all the things right, but we still lose, and that's trucking. Being able to problem solve situations is a tremendous value, not just to your dispatchers, not just to yourself, your bottom line, but to brokers, shippers, and receivers alike. When you share with the broker or the shipper, whoever you're getting the load from, that you have the ability to problem solve, again, whether it's weather or whatever it may be, just share a quick example of something that you see on this load or how you can help yourself or help them, potentially solve problems. That's a really good thing, right? My suggestion to you guys, by the way, for those of you guys that do communicate well, I would use caution. I know a lot of times, and I've gotten this a lot from some drivers, the second some bad thing happens, my phone rings. Now, we ask a lot of our drivers, we sort of, with our company drivers, but we sort of give them, kind of owner-operator type of a leash in many regards. And so I asked them, look, when you experience a problem, if we have full maintenance leases, so hey, call that company, get a roadside truck or whatever it is on the way. Once you have the details, give me a call and let me know, hey, look, I had this problem, and here's what I've done. I've made this phone call. Roadside, it's on the way. It's 45 minutes away. I don't think the load's going to be impacted negatively, so we should be good. 45 minutes later, whatever, just shoot me, let me know, right? Give me a quick text. Hey, roadside assistance is here, right? Whenever they leave, let me know. Everything's still on track. When you communicate like that to me, that just sets my mind at ease. Same thing with the broker. Don't create fear, uncertainty, or doubt. That's an acronym that's used in a lot of business, right? FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Don't create FUD or anxiety that doesn't need to be there. Let them know that there's a problem, but let them know how you're problem solving. I promise you that goes a long way. And the next time you want to book a load with them, if you contact that same broker, they're going to remember that you were someone that could problem solve. I think adaptability is a really big thing. Canal mentioned earlier today in his video, he was talking briefly about detention and that sort of stuff. Shippers and receivers, they're better now than they were early in last year, right? I mean, if you guys remember, the first half of last year was just an absolute debacle with shippers and receivers being so far behind. A lot of it had to do with e-logs and that kind of stuff. They're better now. We still see some pretty bad examples, some load times. Communicate that with the brokers professionally. You get more bees with honey kind of a thing, right? So if you're going to be asking for detention, doing it in a professional way, letting them know that, hey man, I'm being impacted negatively and I would like some detention, that kind of stuff. Doing that in a professional manner goes a long way. And you're probably more apt to get detention in those kind of circumstances than otherwise. But knowing full well and being able to adapt is a key thing. I'll tell you something I learned this week. This is what's cool about trucking, is you learn something new every day. We experienced something that I didn't even know really was a thing. We've hauled a lot of freight up, a lot of produce up out of McAllen, Hidalgo, Laredo, that area. And on more than one occasion, we have had to wait for trucks bringing that produce across the border. I had the circumstance this week that we've never encountered before. We were bringing some product down out of Kansas City. It was some frozen beef stuff. And we got to the receiver, but there was no warehouse, there was no dock necessarily, there's no nothing. And we actually got stuck waiting on a truck to come across the border to pick up that product. So they were literally going to just transfer it from our truck to the other truck and take it south. We did experience some delay because, of course, the government shutdown, and it's causing some problems coming across the border, so we had a little bit of delay. Our driver did a phenomenal job of adapting to that situation, communicating with the broker. We had a load, that load dropped that day, and we already had another load that we were picking up that same evening. And we were dropping in Hidalgo, we were picking in Laredo, 3 hours away. And so our window was compressing significantly. And we got to the point where we were an hour away. We had to leave that place in an hour or we weren't gonna make that. Driver had been communicating to the broker all along. Broker was looking for someone to replace that load with in the event that we couldn't cover it. But because we were communicating so well, the broker wasn't gonna screw us. The broker had another load the next day. He'd already planned to put us on that load if he couldn't get a truck to cover, or if he did get a truck to cover our load that we were on that particular day. So again, by just going above and beyond and communicating honestly and not putting the broker in a bind last second, he wasn't going to leave us in a lurch and stuck without a load. He was going to put us on the very next load on the next morning at the same rate. And so he was helping us adapt as well. So adaptability goes both ways. And I think that professionalism on behalf of our driver, Robert did a great job communicating with the broker. I think it went a long way, right? And so I think adaptability is a big thing as well. I think lastly, and there we could go on and on, but I think it was kind of lastly to keep this video short-ish, is knowing your customers. We are a shipper and a receiver as well as a carrier, and so there's times of the year that we ship, and that's when we need to hire drivers, both company drivers as well as independent carriers and owner-operators, lease operators, that kind of stuff, for short periods of time to haul some of our freight. In that time, and we typically start that hiring process for company drivers now, and we also start planning to look at the number of drivers that we need. But we have a very specific need, right? And it's not year round, it's at certain times of the year that we need outside help. And so for those that are looking to have direct relationships, know your customer, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to be pinging your customer when they're in their slow period of time, other than just kind of a polite way of staying in touch for that next busy season, right? But I had a broker yesterday that I was talking to. We were trying to book a load from the West Coast to the East Coast. We found a good run, and it paid really well. About 15 minutes goes by, no rate confirmation, so I called the broker back. Hey, haven't seen that. And I started getting a few kind of strange comments, and I just said point blank, hey, if you guys are trying to find a cheaper truck on a Friday afternoon, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, then just let me know, because we're going to go a different way. And he kind of gave me some more excuses, and I said, look, I'm not comfortable, I think is what I said. I didn't want to call him a liar. I said, I'm not comfortable with what I'm hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and look for another load. Turns out the guy calls me back, and he says this, and this is really funny for anybody that has followed this channel, because I sort of caused a stir when I said relationships really don't matter in this industry. And I don't mean that as a carte blanche sort of statement, but I think by and large, it probably doesn't really matter. I think that's been proven out with a lot of the broker relationships. But nevertheless, this guy says to me, well, look, I want to build a good relationship with you guys. He had inquired whether or not we had our own nursery, which you could tell by our name. I said yes. He wanted to know if they could move some of our freight, if they could help bid on that as a broker. As he was saying that, he literally said, hey, by the way, in an effort to build a good relationship, I just want you to know that I'm like an assistant for the broker, and they are, in fact, looking for a cheaper truck. So I told him at that point, I said, well, hey, I probably am not interested in using you guys, especially if you guys are trying to find someone cheaper after you've already verbally given us the load and you're just kind of slow rolling us with giving us the Raycon. So, I think understanding the customer, and you probably shouldn't be asking for our business if you're trying to screw us out of our business in the very same conversation. That's just a personal opinion. That's my sense. But I think getting to know your customer, what their needs are, and understand this, guys, whether you like this or not, whoever is writing to is your customer. If that's a broker, then the broker is your customer, right? It's your job to look good in front of them, and it's your job also to make them look really good in front of their shipper, right? Anything you can do in that regard is a good thing, right? So that's my 2 cents on competing in a commoditized industry. I'm curious what you guys see. Again, I just thought it was a little, I thought it was a little lame, and I thought it was a little cheesy, and I thought it lacked thought and effort when I saw constant answers of, I'm just going to provide better customer service. I mean, that's really vague, and it's just, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? Because at the end of the day, you've got a 53-foot box or a flatbed or a step deck or a dry van, whatever. You have the same exact trailer that everybody else has. So how are you going to differentiate, all right, in this market? Yeah, it is a long time. It's been a long time. In fact, I had to sort of stop and think and try to remember how to go live, if you guys want to know the truth. QAL, well, thanks for being here at 2 o'clock in the morning over there. Sugar Shine, Cows, how's it going? Mooch is in here. So, Cal, how's it going, buddy? Inman, how are you, man? Yeah, we are back at it. That's kind of how it is this time of year. Hammer down, when are you going to get in a truck and make a couple of trips? Man, right now I'm trying to find trips for our guys, so it's busy. Not now, no, not now. No, I did hammer down. I did a pretty good job this week. I've set some expectations for what we need to drive in revenue each and every week, and I actually exceeded that number by I think $6,000-7,000 this week for our fleet. All of our drivers got the number of miles that I had hoped that they would get, and some got a lot more. Actually, let's talk about that just really briefly. When we talk about competing in this commoditized industry, especially when February comes, what's the real issue, right? The issue is freight drops, rates get significantly lower. So how can we do and improve and try to continue to keep our revenues pretty consistent? One of the things that I'm a huge fan of doing, I believe it's just a necessity, and it's something that we've struggled to do in the past, is I want to get a load on that truck the very same day that we get unloaded. And there are a lot of people that say that's a bad idea. You can't do that. You're risking missing that load. And then if it takes you a long time to get unloaded, bad things are going to happen. You're going to burn a relationship with the broker. Blah blah blah. And I don't buy. I mean, look, there is some truth to that, but I just don't believe there's a lot of value in those comments. And I'll tell you why. The last thing a broker wants to do is to have to, if you experience a long unload and you're going to be late, the last thing that broker wants to do is to post that load back on the load board, because now it's a hot load. They got to get it covered. It's going to cost them more money. They would much prefer, not that they want this to happen, but if they're given the two options of paying more and having to go back and find another truck, or having to push you out until the next morning to get loaded, then that's what they would do. So, I'm just telling you guys, one of the ways that you can help improve your profitability and your revenue is look for loads that are going to deliver in the morning so that you can find another load that afternoon, so you're not wasting an entire day sitting. Because the next day, if you have to find a load the following day, it doesn't always mean that you're going to find a load that loads at 0600. You may very well not find a load that loads until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And by the time you add 2 or 3 or 4 hours of load time, you've been sitting all day, you're awake all day, you've been burning hours. What are you going to do? Well, now guess what? You need to find a place to park. So you've in sense just wasted an entire drive cycle, an entire 11 hours or even more of a drive cycle, right? You do that twice a week, and if it's a week that you need a reset in, you've just wasted 3 or 4 days of driving. Now you only have 3 days of driving out of the week. So it's complete waste. It's going to hurt your bottom line. It's going to hurt your top line as well as your bottom line. So you can help yourself during these slow times by finding loads that are going to drop in the morning so that you can find another load that afternoon and get underneath it and then make some decisions predicated on parking, weather, your clock, all that sort of stuff. All right, so you can help yourself and your top and bottom line by just executing on a couple of those details. Let's see. The who is the feed. No, maybe it is. If it is, I've been talking for a long time for no reason. Pro Liquor, how's it going? Hammer Down says, I like to provide mediocre customer service because I'm an owner-op and I like to be broke. Isn't that the truth? Oh, my goodness. QAL is answering some question. Man, Osama, I thought we double tapped him. Let's see here. The Hool says, if you mess up at Bella Floor, you get a phone call. All you hear is Jay Cannell giggling on the other end. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. Michael says they mainly get fuel and a discount, projected fuel purchases by using certain fuel stops. Man, I'll tell you what, guys. I don't know. I don't want to name this company because I'm not 100% certain. But man, we've had several trucks. First time we've really encountered this. We've had several trucks. I think deal with some algae in the diesel from a pretty major truck stop. We've been dealing with some issues. Fuel filters are clogging up every 3 days. APU issues all across the board. That has been an absolute nightmare. I think I've heard some of our drivers talk about other drivers experiencing this and talking about it. Again, I don't want to mention their name for fear, largely of a lawsuit, because again, I don't have 100% proof, but we have some pretty clear examples that, trucks that have only been fueling from them and only them for quite some time. So that sucked. That sucked a lot. Greg Emmons says, I've had that conversation 3 times this week, 4,800, 5 days run. Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, I talked to the guy, I said, man, you do understand that there's a game and cost per mile is a piece of that, but also if you guys are going to be having a longer window, you want to tie up our truck for the entire week, then we have a kind of a weekly expectation that we need to achieve for profitability, and it's not 3 days worth of run, right? I mean, we played that game and it cost us a lot. Food Mooch providing updates. Rams 20, Dallas 7. Loshan, how are you, man? Welcome back. Thanks. Man, I tell you, I took some time off of it as well, and it was nice. I haven't watched. I've watched some YouTube videos, but it has none of which were trucking related. It was just randomness. Osama bin Laden's in here. SoCal's just plowing him. Let's see here. Actually, I shouldn't say it that way. Blocking him. Good job. John Hall, trucking advice with corporate profits slant. Cooperate to earn. No doubt, man. Absolutely. Dan says, I learn something new every day. Good deal. Isn't that the truth? Especially in this industry, man. Very, very true. John Hall. Well, I don't know. I mean, Jared, I don't know. I guess it's not. I don't know. It sort of struck me as a pretty racist comment when she asked if our guy speaks English. Again, I don't know. Wasn't in her shoes. I don't know what she had been having to deal with. But look, even if you have an accent, right? I mean, I know I've traveled a fair amount overseas and in other cultures, and I do my very best to try to speak, in as good of a manner as I can so that they can understand what I'm asking or needing. And so I don't know what the lady had been dealing with, but clearly it was a pain, and we had a solution. Your numbers are wrong. What are your numbers? I don't know. They just are. Yeah, right. I had, who was it? I think it was TQL. Although I did have quite a few conversations with TQL. They had a couple of good loads. We booked a couple, for sure. And so, but one of the guys, it was a run to Chicago, and I looked at the numbers and the trends had stated it was kind of averaging. I think it was 6,100, I think. And the guy says, no, you're wrong. It's only average. We're only paying 43. And I was like, well, I don't care what you're paying. I'm just telling you what we'll do it for, right? And so there's a lot to be said for that, right? You kind of have to stand your ground. You got to know what your numbers are. Yeah, bosses don't like calls in the morning and the wee hours for problems you can't fix yourself. Yeah, I mean, look, it happens, right? I mean, again, it's we're in an industry where things break down and bad things happen, unfortunately. So, again, just having thoughts. There is so much. I find so much value in drivers that want to. That if you're going to call me at 2 a.m. and you don't know what the problem is or you don't have the solution, that's fine. I mean, that happens, right? But if it's a problem that you probably should have looked at or tried to identify, and you come to me with no solution, then that's a little frustrating. But our guys most of our guys are just incredible. Again, I got this problem, and here's what I'm doing to correct it. You got any thoughts or 2 cents or whatever? Nope, sounds great. That's exactly what I would have recommended. So great job. So that's that. QXXI gives Scott a thumbs up. That's, look, I don't normally get a thumbs up. I get a different finger, so I'll take thumbs up. Let's see, I'm Puerto Rican, and believe me, that's not a bad question to ask because a lot of drivers don't speak English. I understand where she's coming from, and I'm sure she'd clearly been dealing with some challenges in that sort of space, and so I get it. I understand. Damon, oh man, it just popped down. Damon, what was your comment? I'm way behind. Sorry, Damon, I didn't see it. Let me see if I can bounce up really quick. Conspiracy theory of the day is, I don't have a conspiracy theory today. Thought I moved to Mexico, long time no see. I know. No Mexico. World golf trophies, they're still right there. They're right there. Josh, how are you? Johnny R, welcome, man. How are you? Monk, I saw that sort of topic in Cannell's live feed. I'm not even going to go there, man. Not even going to go there. Some brokers think carriers work for them. Well, in all honesty, I mean, I think I know where you're going with that relative to rates and that sort of stuff. But ultimately, they are our customer. If they're the ones writing the check, then we do work for them, right? And I think I don't think you always have to just be a yes man. But I think understanding and asking the questions about what they want is a big thing. Look, I think I can add, I'll add one more item or whatever I was at, 4 or 5 kind of topics or bullet points on this. How many of you guys take the time just to create an email, save it to your drafts, and then send it to a broker, maybe especially one that if you got a really good load, a good paying load, or one where they loaded you quickly and unloaded you quickly, right? There's a lot of value in that to us. How many of you guys just take a quick little, a 2 bullet point or 3 bullet point email that says, hey, how do we do on our run? What would you guys, how could we improve for you in the future? And would you use us again going forward, right? It takes no time whatsoever to just send that email. Again, just save it, copy, paste, send it right back to the broker. And, look, maybe that's an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door, find out what's important to them, and how you can improve, right? Give me 1 second. I got to multitask. This is riveting TV, right? All right. Let me jump way down. So some brokers do think, and look, how many times have we paid for something, top dollar for something, we expect really good service and we get bad service? That happens. So it's up to us to try to to try to provide that really good customer service. LVC, set yourself apart, having Jay give foot massages to the shippers. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I would put that on the questionnaire. Look, by the way, as a gift for you, the next time you're in Kansas City, Jay Cannell will give you free foot massages, right? I think that's a great idea, obviously. Greg Inman says, so how much is the bribe for you for you running spring flowers? Man, Greg, here's the problem with me is I'm bought so cheaply. It's easy. It's really easy. By the way, Greg, you ended up getting that truck, right? So how's it running? Is it performing well for you? I hope so. Johnny R says, you should have a load ready to pick up the same day. I'm a really big believer in that. Not everybody is a believer in that. I just believe that it's the best thing to have happen. Yeah, I mean, look, we run reefer, and unfortunately for our guys, sometimes we load at really, single-digit numbers on the clock, and we deliver it those same hours, and so running reefer can be tough. Midwest Farm says, Super Trucker. Crypto, it has been a minute. You're right, man, it has been. Stack 'em and rack 'em. My audio clipped out? I don't know. What is the cost per mile to operate a truck? It's going to vary for everybody, right? If you were to look at an industry average, like if you just sort of took, think about it, right? You got day cabs, you got box trucks, you got sleepers, you got guys that are running local. So the cost per mile is going to sort of be all over the board. Some guys have brand new, big, fancy, long nose trucks. Higher cost, some guys are paid off, so it's all over the board, right? I mean, probably could be as cheap as, with today's fuel costs, probably as cheap for somebody that's got everything paid off in the dollar, I don't know, probably mid dollar 130s, $1.40 for guys that have newer equipment, probably as high as $1.80. Now we're $1.90, somewhere in that neighborhood, and of course we are including a driver's salary in that, as you should, but pretty significant, right? You guys had water in the fuel, Johnny? Yeah, I wish ours was not water. That I know, unfortunately, but we've had it. You guys have had poor fuel from Love's twice in the past few weeks. Man, this wasn't Love's. Man, I don't know what's going on. I mean, we run a lot during the winter. I mean, this is nothing new to us. Our guys run year round, right? We haul flowers 7-8 months out of the year. We run OTR, outside freight, what we deem as OTR. Spot market, load board stuff, the other 4 months out of the year. And we've not had really any issues with like this before with fuel. So something must be up. But it's been an issue for us. How do you manage to get algae in a truck? Oh man, well, so it's a thing, and I first learned about this when I had the RV way back when. If you fuel at a lot of smaller mom and pop kind of truck stops, a lot of times where they don't cycle through a lot of that diesel, temperature changes in the ground and that sort of stuff can cause some of that. I can tell you, it's a real pain to deal with. So if there's a reason to spend a little bit more at maybe some of the bigger truck stops, that could be one. Like I said, our guys are really good and very cost conscious about finding cheap fuel, moreover. But this is a thing where there's some stuff in the fuel. It's been a pain. It's affected several of our trucks. There you go, Spectre's got your answer right there. SoCal, look at you, man. Golf trophies are right there. I got these lights. I couldn't even turn the camera around. You guys have all seen them. Trucking is the backbone of America. You're right. And it is, look, it's really, look, what you guys do, is tough. I mean, the average person can't jump in a Lexus or a Mercedes and drive the kind of miles that you guys drive, much less, in a truck, much less sleep in it and all that sort of stuff. The wear and tear on you guys, your body, your hearing. Look, my dad's got, hearing. My dad had, as a lot of you guys know, you guys spend many years driving. My dad had some melanoma, some cancer, and they literally cut him like this and peeled this whole part of his face back, dealing with some cancer. And so that's, I mean, you guys, and Cannell's video talked a lot about the challenges that you guys face. And then there's these hidden challenges again, right? Being exposed to the sun on the left side of your body. There's just all kinds of weird stuff that you guys deal with. Taking showers in truck stops, right? Eating crappy food. I mean, just on and on and on. You guys absolutely are, the backbone of America. I saw a comment, I think, maybe it was Cannell, I guess. They were kind of alluding to, driver pay, and it was Cannell's video, being, way behind. As he was talking about that, I just, you sort of like do a quick Google search, and it sort of says like the average driver pay is like 38,000 or 43,000, something like that. And I thought, okay, well, if there's 3 million truck drivers, and the average pay should be, let's just say 80 grand, right? Everybody should be making around 80 grand. If you multiply $50,000 raise, right? If they're currently making 35 or 40 and you give them 50,000 raise, I think it was $150 billion of additional cost that would go to drivers, right? Now again, this is very back of the napkin kind of stuff. It's $150 billion of money to be paid to drivers that has to come from somewhere. Well, if you're a company driver, it's going to come from your company. If you're an owner operator or lease operator, it's going to come from that broker or that shipper. Obviously, they're getting it by passing on that cost to the consumer, whether it's coats or produce or whatever it is, right? So that's a pretty staggering number, right? That's a lot of money. I don't think anyone would argue that driver pay is lacking significantly. What I can tell you from a carrier standpoint, and this probably sounds really rich coming from me, but I don't think you see most trucking companies as really high profit centers. I mean, even if you look at some of the mega carriers who are public, that we can see what their profitabilities are or really aren't. It's not like those guys are turning high profit margins. So, it's a really interesting, it's a really difficult situation, across the board. Again, if we start increasing a lot of pay, then a lot of the price that we all experience in the supermarkets and all that stuff is going to go up. But there needs to be something done so that drivers and carriers can make a reasonable wage for all the risk that we take collectively. So I don't disagree with anything there for sure. But it's a challenge. Empty fuel. Did somebody say fuel? Man, we're talking about it. Are you delivering that crap? Man, I hope not. Little dog did almost kill me with a golf ball a couple weeks ago. I needed a good laugh that day, and that was a good laugh that day. No doubt. $3,000 before it left Phoenix. Tell me that you're kidding, Greg. Well, hopefully that $3,000 was money well spent, and it's been running good ever since. The Hool says it's not bad as a reefer driver until you have had the best of reefers CD to be able to keep you to sleep. Yeah, right. Nailed it. Welcome. Let's see. Scott, no, if Candy Camera, she was waiting. What are you talking about? I missed it. No gliders. Who was it I was talking to the other day? Somebody was talking about how the government is now, and this, I was looking at gliders pretty hardcore about a year ago when we were looking at some of the lease op, offering some lease op stuff. I was looking at gliders, and my biggest fear, honestly, was it looked like the EPA was not really going to allow them to sell any more gliders than they were already allotted, and that turned out to be true. My biggest fear was saving. When you buy a glider, you're going to save what, $20,000-$25,000, and then you hope that your operating costs are cheaper as well over the life of that truck. So I don't know what your total savings is. Pick a number, right? 50 grand, whatever it is. My biggest fear was that this would happen. Is that then the government would try to do what the government always does, which is they take a little bit and then a year or two later they take more and then they take more. And next thing you know, again, not to go political, this is my opinion, our rights are being eroded more and more and more. So now what I heard was it looks like they're trying to basically say, anything pre-2000 shouldn't be on the road at all. And so for those that invested in gliders, yeah, you might have saved 20 or 30 grand, but now that investment's going to be scrapped. I don't know. I just think it's, actually, I don't want to go all political, so we'll just leave it there. The way Will was hitting, he probably had it planned. Man, he hit the ball. He hit some really good balls. Considering, I think he said he hadn't swung a golf club in like 20 years. A lot of algae problems come from winter blend due to it sitting until winter. Could very well be the case. I did call the general manager of that facility. I didn't get him. I got somebody else. He was supposed to call me back Monday. Today's Saturday. I'm sure he's just really busy. He's probably really busy fielding all the calls from the other people that are complaining about the same stuff. Maybe that's what it is. Let's see. Dan, kind of saying the same thing. Yeah, no doubt. Nailed it. The Dollar Shave Clubs. No, man. I did shave the other day. Had I known I was going to do a live feed, I wouldn't have shaved. I think the real number of drivers is closer to 500,000 active drivers. Could be right. I think it's probably more than that. Who knows? Not you, Empty Fuel. That's good, man. Mooch says, "Where do I get the hat?" I don't know where I don't remember. Mooch, I don't remember where I got it. Volvo has set aside $7 billion to look into the emissions thing. That's a lot of money. Did Kristen go to Pier 1 to add some decor to your... No, honestly, so this lamp was here. My desk is sort of just, it's piled. And so I literally just ran out of the room, so I just stuck it there. But if it looks good as decor, then we'll just call it decor. And that's just in the backpack in my drone. Do you use sonar by FreightWaves? Yes. In fact, I was talking earlier with Jay and Will about that. I think I first started looking at the sonar stuff from FreightWaves about a year-ish ago. And I do see a fair amount of value in that. I do. For me personally, I will read a lot of kind of industry news, what's going on. I like looking at a lot of the numbers on the load boards. I like looking at the loads. I like looking at some of the data on DAT. I like looking at their some of the averages and seeing what's going on. So I do try to track some of that stuff. I do try to look at our miles, cost and fuel. I mean, we look at a lot of numbers. If you're kind of new to the channel, we have a pretty healthy spreadsheet that tracks a lot of data, granted, and we try to use that data. I hope that we use that spreadsheet to make educated business decisions. When we tend to use all the data, it's funny when we actually use the spreadsheet and we use the data, we tend to be profitable. When we don't use it and we don't execute on a lot of the little things, we tend not to be driving as much revenue or profit. And so I'm a huge advocate for knowing what your costs are, knowing your cost per mile, and tracking that diligently. Especially when we get into times where things are tough. You guys have heard me talk, although not recently, in the past year and a half, right? Any idiot could jump in a truck, shut the door, start shifting gears and make money. When rates change is when we see those we see the difference between those that are successful in managing their business and their costs win out, right? We see that. And if I were someone that was interested in lease operating, I would not be buying a truck right now. I would be waiting. I'd be waiting another 5 to 6 months, because if the rates, maybe it's just the naysayers. I mean, tell me if anybody's shocked by this, but drivers as a whole are maybe not the most positive of people. So who knows what the rates are really going to do, but if the rates tend to struggle over the next several weeks, several months, I think you're going to see a lot of guys struggling, and I think you'll see some really good equipment for sale for really cheap. So, I wouldn't pay top dollar right now for truck and trailer. I would just kind of sit tight and wait and see how things play out, and take advantage of things if it presents itself, right? So if you have the opportunity to wait, then I would do that. But yeah, I do follow Sonar, and I do like tracking a lot of data. Will freight rates get higher in February and March? No, Robert. Well, I shouldn't. Typically, they do not get higher. Typically, it's the latter part of March at best. Typically, it's even into kind of early April before you see the rates start to trend upward. So February is typically the worst month of the year. March is kind of a February hangover. And then once we get into spring, April and May is when you'll start to see things rocking pretty well. June, I think, is typically about your best month. June, early July. Once you get past the 4th of July, that's when you'll see rates start to dip down again. And they'll be a little sluggish into July, August, and early part of September. Middle of September or so, typically we see the rates start to pick back up. A lot of the seasonal stuff that time of year. So that's kind of what the market looks like. So you got a couple months, hopefully you got another 2 or 3 weeks of good rates, good freight, and then you kind of hang on, right? That's kind of how it usually looks like. Both trucks will be in Missouri April 1st unless you need us earlier. Greg, stay tuned, right? It's a little early for us right now, but man, it's probably going to be sometime around April 1st, give or take. You're welcome, Granite. PSA, just because your operating costs are low, please do not take markets, bid competitive. Man, right, that's a good public service announcement, probably a good one to wrap up on. Once again, I always manage to, I figured this video was gonna be short, here we are, an hour. Yeah, man, if your operating costs are low, take advantage of that by booking still competitive rates for those of us that have higher costs. Oh, by the way, it's just gonna put more money in your pocket, right? So that's good. Cool, hey, it's good to catch up with you guys. I hope that you guys put some thought into how to be more competitive in a commoditized environment, especially as we are approaching our worst, probably 6 to 8 weeks of the year, typically. So hopefully that helps you guys. Maybe throw a few little tidbits for thought out as to how we can all compete better, provide a little better customer service, do some small things to differentiate us from a lot of people that just are out here trying to get a paycheck versus trying to run a business, because there's two very different things, right? So you guys that are making miles, stay safe, and I hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you